You know, sometimes when you speak the last person in the room, it's always a disadvantage because some people are like, oh, you know, we are being told the same thing again. So I would like us to stand and stretch a little bit. Okay? Can everyone let us stand and stretch a little bit? Yeah. Yeah. I think that's enough. We can have a seat. So today, my dear friends, we have had a very good discussion, 2 panels, an amazing story by Elizabeth earlier on, and the stories and the conversations highlighted 2 areas. That young people are doing solutions out there that need to be upskilled, but also most importantly, that the policies that we've put in place, the initiatives, the strategies, do not align or do not create opportunities for them to upscale their efforts. We heard also from the second panel especially that SMEs are important. But again, I want to remind everyone that in as much as SMEs are important, SMEs, according to studies by the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, 80% of SMEs fall within their first or second years. So again, that shows the challenges of youth involvement. And lastly, we also heard that there are opportunities being created by the new dispensation of the green economy, but also as well, I want to remind that the blue economy as well creates opportunities because we've seen young people doing amazing things and making it big from aquaculture, mariniculture, and all those things that the blue economy provides. But as I said before, you know, over the past 2 months, we were engaging in very, very serious deliberations with the rest of my team in the Ban Ki-moon Youth AgriChampions. And we realized that our initiatives on locally led adaptation face significant challenges that if not addressed, we are going to keep repeating these forums, keep repeating our policy discussions, keep repeating complaining. And therefore, we decided that we must change the situation. And how are we going to change the situation? We are going to come up with demands, and demands backed up by data, evidence, and solutions from the field. And this is our voice. And our voice is stipulated in 3 specific areas. The first area is the challenge on access to climate financing. Ladies and gentlemen, we all need money to go and do all these activities. All my friends who are speaking here, without funding, they wouldn't be here. They wouldn't have done all those initiatives. Even for my friends who are employed, you need funding and institutional financial capacity in order for you to do all the things that you want to do. But unfortunately, young farmers like us in the field, we face significant challenges with accessing financing because number one, the forms are very lengthy. The forms are in English. Remember that most farmers are in the rural areas where English is not the main lingua franca. We also know that so many documents are always demanded. For example, bank statements, financial reports, audit reports, business registration statements. Again, how do you expect a young farmer in the field to go and get these documents surely? We also have the issue that private sector funding is there, but again, the interest rates are very high. And there is no bank in the world that will give you money without a guarantee that you will pay it. And what guarantee can a young farmer provide in the rural areas or even in the urban areas? And therefore, we, the Ban Ki-moon Youth Agri-Champions, call upon international climate financing institutions to simplify and streamline application, compliance, reporting processes to make them accessible to small-scale holder farmers. We do this because we realize that there is much that can be done to ensure that application forms are redesigned and they are user-friendly, to ensure that we reduce the timelines for accessing this funding, and also to reduce the transaction costs that are associated with making these applications. I wish to remind you that 21 years ago, our own governments here in Africa made a commitment under the Maputo Protocol that they will allocate 10% of their budgets to agricultural development. However, sadly, that has not been done. And therefore, we urgently call for our own African governments to implement their own obligations. Again, in December of 2023, just last year, less than even 12 months, The heads of the Adaptation Fund, the Climate Investment Funds, the Global Environmental Facility, and the Green Climate Fund issued a joint declaration outlining their commitment to strengthen the complementarity and coherence between their funds and to improve and streamline modalities for application. This hasn't happened, and therefore, we as the Ban Ki-moon Youth Agri-Champions call upon these leaders, the same leaders who signed these commitments. It's not us who signed, it's them they signed. We call upon them to fast-track implementation and ensure that smallholder farmers are consulted during this process of allocating these funds, during this process of creating the application forms for this financing, because as I will mention later on, local engagement is very important. You cannot have locally led adaptation without local engagement. Ladies and gentlemen, as I move to the next challenge, I want you to remind everyone here of the words that His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, the 8th Secretary General, made during the signing process of the Paris Agreement. He said that climate change does not respect borders. It does not respect who you are, whether you are rich and poor, small and big. It affects everyone and it cuts across. So I want to tell my friends, even those who think that they live in the urban areas and this does not affect them, is that locally led adaptation is not just for rural areas, it's also for the urban areas. The climate crisis does not know whether you are in Kigali or whether you are in Huye, whether you are in Kampala, whether you are in Gulu, whether you are in Algiers or whether you are in Sfax. It doesn't care about that. It cuts across. And therefore, the next challenge that we identified is that there is inadequate availability and dissemination of good data and information. And I talk about this challenge with a little bit of sorrowness. Last year in Zambia, there was a major drought that prolonged and became a national disaster. And one of the drivers of this drought was that there was not enough information that would have enabled the farmers to make accurate predictions and to prepare for themselves. I know most of you will tell me, but Brian, there's a lot of research that is being done. Yes, there is research, but the research is on the internet and it's sitting on shelves. This research cannot be accessed by young smallholder farmers, and most importantly, it doesn't speak to their problems. We have a situation here in Africa today where there's a lack of accurate, localized climate information on weather patterns, soil conditions, pests and diseases, dynamics, and this has made farmers not to make informed decisions, even about what crops they will plant. I tell you this, if we do not understand our needs, we cannot develop any solutions. And therefore, we, the Ban Ki-moon Youth Agri-Champions, call upon policymakers and researchers to improve communication strategies to disseminate climate adaptation information effectively using local languages and accessible formats. We should not continue speaking in scientific jargons that nobody understands. Who understands carbon markets? Who understands things to do with climate resilience? Come and speak to local communities in language that they can understand, language that they can relate, so that they can be able to participate. And most importantly also, we should stop this culture of looking at traditional and scientific knowledge as two opposing things where we have to take one and take the other. I want to remind you that there is no technology in the world that can know better than a farmer who has lived in their land for generations. There is no technology, none whatsoever. Even Musk, if he wanted to invent it, he will not try. He will not get there. And therefore, we call upon governments must urgently invest in local data collection and presentation, and most importantly, incorporate traditional methods of data collection and environmental monitoring into scientific research and policy formulation. All the problems that were discussed here in the panels before, our policies do not work. You know why they don't work? Because we have not involved the local communities. We haven't gone and listened to their needs. We are lecturing them about what they need, what we think they need to be addressed. That cannot work, and we as a youth, Ban Ki-moon Youth Agri-Champions, call upon for a paradigm shift in how we approach information and data. The last challenge we addressed was on land. I know everyone here wants to own land. but we may die without even owning one. And this is very sad because in Africa, we have the largest percentage of arable land in the world. Despite our 1.2 billion population, we also have a large percentage of unoccupied land because our population density is lower than in most continents. However, only 10% of young people in this continent own land. And this is even worse when you consider even those who think that they own land, they don't even have documentation to show that they own it. Again, land is a very big challenge in that because of the extensive use of highly hazardous pesticides and inorganic fertilizers for a very long period in order to maximize yield since the colonial era, we are in a situation where land in Africa has been degraded. And also, we have a situation where there's rising land cost. And the rising land cost is a factor of increasing population. We know that in Africa, our population is growing by about 10% each year. Urbanization is increasing and encroaching on arable land. And these challenges compound young farmers to make them unable to do locally led adaptation in their communities. And therefore, we, the Ban Ki-moon Youth Agri-Champions, have a very, very important demand here. We call upon policymakers to urgently implement land mapping programs to effectively support land tenure security, promote equitable land distribution, and contribute to sustainable development. Locally led adaptation is very important when it comes to solving the challenge of land, because local communities, when you sit with them and you involve them in land mapping programs, in planning for Vision 2050, I had in Rwanda, they start in the African Union, we have Vision 2063. If we involve the local communities in doing this, then we are able to ensure that their rights are protected. We are able to ensure that women have the right to inherit land and to own land. We are able to ensure that land users can make climate change adaptation modifications with a view to long-term agricultural productivity. As I said before, young people have solutions. For the challenge on access to finance, one of our fellow youth agri-champions by the name Daniel Nanaba has been running an organization called Eco Impact Limited from Ghana, and he has worked with 1,200 smallholder farmers to train them on financial reporting so that they can be able to access funds. On the challenge of information, we have a fellow colleague by the name of Sumeya Juma who developed an application. This application is even better than Instagram or TikTok because it combines satellite mapping with on-the-ground data and notifies farmers of even changes in the soil moisture and the soil temperature. We have solutions. And if you're going to leave this room, I want you to remember three things: finance, information, land. FIL, fill the gaps. Our three demands are very simple: simplify and streamline procedures for accessing international climate finance, localize data collection and information dissemination, and ease access to land for young farmers. We do not want to be in a scenario where we repeat this conversation in the 5th session of the African Food Systems Forum in COP30, COP31, COP32, COP33, if we'll be alive until COP80. We do not have the time. Climate change is a ticking time bomb. The lack of the food insecurity challenge in Africa is also a ticking time bomb, and poverty as well, because more young people are coming into the job market. How will they get jobs? And so with that, I want to tell you one thing. We can, we should, and we must do more. And the only way we are going to achieve all the things that we desire to improve locally led adaptation is by implementing these demands that are here. This is our voice. Please listen to us. Thank you very much.